So hello dear students. So I am Samir Velankar and I am your teacher for Python and machine learning. Well, we already had 2 lectures before this, that is on previous Saturday and Sunday. And we had learned quite a lot in those 2 lectures. Now those 2 lectures have been uploaded on YouTube. So those who have joined today can later on, maybe at tonight or maybe tomorrow morning, can go on and visit those links which will be forwarded to you, or they might have been forwarded already, and you can see those lectures. But I'll tell you that nothing extraordinary was taught on those 2 days. Being a teacher, I don't mind saying that some very fundamentals of Python language was taught, like what is a variable, what do you mean by data type, like int, float, str stands for string, then bool, which stands for boolean. See, these very fundamental things were taught, and how to print some output using print. For example, what do you mean by this? Print hello. This will print hello on the screen. How do you input some value? For example, if you want to input the value of n, you say n is equal to input, n is equal to input, then in quotation, enter n. I hope everybody recalls this. Then we saw what are math operators, mathematical operators. Okay. And interesting operators were this division, then this floor division, then this exponentiation, and this remainder. Many people call this as mod operator. And then we saw what is precedence of operators. Recall multiplication, division, and percent, and this what do you call as floor division have higher priority than plus and minus. We saw this. We also saw how to install Python and Anaconda. I hope those who joined last time may have already installed these 2 things, and they might have already tried a few programs. So these things we had learned, but most importantly, those who were there with me on the previous 2 lectures would have liked this idea. The idea was, why don't we start straight away with programs? So we did not talk much about theory, and we saw Python programs straight away. And some interesting programs we saw, like finding slope of a line, then finding length of a line. Then recall the program which one of you solved, actually. Hats off, really. Like if the coordinates of 3 points of a triangle are given, like x1, y1, x2, y2, and x3, y3. These coordinates are given, or rather you have to input these coordinates, then what will be the area of this triangle? So find area of triangle we saw. And this was not at all ordinary program. You see, this had many computations, like you computed length A, length B, length C, and then found area using Fermat's theorem. So I repeat, those who have joined today would not have as such any problem in understanding the code which is written in Python, because you might have heard that Python itself is a very simple language. And that's what I'm going to prove. But what is the topic for the day? See, the topic I have selected for the day is control structures. Just a minute. Just a minute. Let me admit these boys and girls. Okay. See, I have selected the topic called control structures. First of all, you try to understand the meaning of control structure. What do you mean by control structure? See, whenever you write Python program, imagine this is your Python program. Okay. Just say that these are some of the lines you have written in the Python program. Now, when you run this Python program, the program will run from top to bottom. That means the program will run line by line, and the first line will run first and second line will run second up to the last line. So we say flow of the program is from top to down, isn't it? But many times, you know what, as a programmer, what you want to do is maybe these two lines, just check, these two lines are to be repeated. So what I want to say is, imagine these are the lines of your Python program. This line will run, this line will run, this line will run, this line will run. And after you run this line, you want to again run these two lines, again run these two lines. Keep executing these two lines, maybe for 10 times. Repeat these lines. And after repetition of 10 times, you want to now break this and you want to continue running the rest of the code, line after line. So when you want to create such a cycle, this is a cycle, isn't it? Of some statements getting repeated. What you do is you use control structure. But what are you controlling? Try to understand. What are you controlling? You are controlling flow of the program. A normal flow is top to bottom. But now you are controlling the flow. You just check. You will become a good programmer. I bet on it. You will become a good programmer if you know how to control the flow of the program. The flow of the program should be in your hands, not in the hands of Python. You should be able to play with the flow as you like, so that you can send the control, you can send the flow to particular statement of your choice. So that's the topic. And one way of controlling the flow is by writing a for loop. As the name suggests, loop means it's going to be used for repetition of certain statements. So let's start with for loop, everyone. Best of luck. So what is a for loop? Let's see. Oh, what is this? Who is scribbling? Oh, good Lord. Okay. What is for loop? Now, to understand what is for loop, I'll take a very simple program. Here is question number 1. Look again. I said that being a teacher, I know that it is always better to learn any programming concept by first learning program and then see the definition. So the question is, write a program, in short, WAP, write a program to print all numbers from 1 to 10. From 1 to 10. Simple. What we want is when my Python program will run, the output should be 1, 2, 3, up to 10. That's it. Very ordinary program. But then you just think of how will you write this? You just want to print 1, 2, 3, up to 10. But again, I promise you will not have any difficulty whatsoever to understand this lecture. Every bit of it you will understand. How will you print 1 to 10? Just see the Python program. Very silly, what I am going to write. Suppose I write print in quotation 1 like this. Now this print will literally print 1 on the screen. This 1 will be printed. Then I will print 2. Print in quotation 2. This will literally print 2 after 1. Correct? And this way, I will keep writing up to last print 10 in the quotation. Oh, there is no semicolon. I am so sorry. You can give semicolon, but that's optional in Python. So you can see if you run this program, it will definitely print 1 to 10. It will definitely print this output. But this is so silly. What if I change the question and I said that print all numbers from 1 to 100? You tell me, what will you do? Will you write such 100 print statements and then say, hurrah, I have written the program. Look, this is printing all numbers from 1 to 100. You cannot afford writing 100 lines in your program just for printing 1 to 100. Isn't it so? So do you have any better idea? Yes, the better idea is to repeat certain statements. So here we go. We give up this poor idea of printing 1 to 10. And what we do is we use a for loop. How do you use a for loop? Best of luck. We write for x in range 1 comma 11. Now observe, when I am writing something new in Python, you have to look at the grammar first of all. How to write it, you have to think over it, how to write it, and gradually you will understand why to write it. Now why is the question which will come later. I mean, in which situations you will write for loop, that will come up later. But first of all, you observe what is the grammar. Now after the word for, there is always a variable. This x is a variable. Now you can use any variable, x, y, z, p, t, q, r, anything, any variable. And after the variable, there is always a word in. And after in, there is a range. Now range, as the name suggests, has two values, 1 and 11 given here. Then we are having a range of all values in this bracket ranging from 1 to 10. Am I wrong? Because I have written 1 comma 11. No, I am correct. It is always 1 less than this last value, which is taken by the for loop. So if you actually expand this, this is nothing but 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 10. Up to 10. If you expand this bracket, this range 1 comma 11 means 1, 2, 3, up to 10, not up to 11. It is 1 less than whatever is the last value given over here. After that, the grammar says there is a colon here, colon, not semicolon, it's colon. Now comes the most interesting part of the for, where we give print x over here. And can you believe it? That's it. This is the program. This is the Python program which will print all numbers from 1 to 10. Whereas you just compare this program with the earlier program where we wrote 10 print statements, print 1, print 2, up to print 10. That was bad. But here we have written print only once. And what we are doing is we are asking this print to repeat in the for. So listen, next 2 minutes, I'm going to tell you how Python runs this for loop. What happens internally? Here we go. When for starts, it says, okay, x is my variable and x is going to take the first value 1. So at the moment, x is 1. After making x equal to 1, the for will say, I will do the job that you have asked me to do. What is the job? Print the value of x, check. And value of x is 1. So 1 will get printed at the output. Okay, now job has been done. After the job, this x is going to take the next value in this range. Oh, hello. What is the next value? Next value is 2. Because we have said the range is 1 comma 11. So now x is 2. When x is 2, it will again run this job and it will print value of x. Value of x is 2. After doing the job, it will again make x equal to 3, the next value. And it will do the job of printing 3. This goes on, this goes on. And what really happens when x becomes 10, the last value? It will print 10 and then stop. Look, it will not make x 11. You have given the last value as 11. Whenever you give last value as 11, x can take values only from 1 to 10. That's it. So all values from 1 to 10 will be printed. So typically, you will see whenever you see a for loop in Python, you will see something like this. For some variable in range from some initial to final, colon, and then some job, like job which we want to repeat. Now, as an example, variable in our example was x, correct? Then there was a word in, then range, and the initial value was 1 and the final value was 11. It is always 1 less than final value which is taken. And the job was print x. This is how you write for loop in Python. Well, if I say that discussion of the first control structure is finished, over, I am not exaggerating. This is it. This is for loop. Now, how you apply it is to be seen. So what I did, before coming for the class, I've already prepared some notes on control structure in the Jupyter notebook. Now, those who have joined new, we are using Jupyter notebook to type and run our Python programs. And then we have planned that we will share this notebook with everyone. So you can read this notebook on your computer, and you can click on any program on your machine. You can just click on any program here, say this is the program. You can just click run button on your machine and you will see the output. So this is the complete Jupyter notebook that I have made. And our plan is, I said we have finished learning about for loop, isn't it? Yeah, that's the way how for works. But then I have created lots of examples. Some 9 examples I have created of for loop, and then I can give you some homework for some practice on the for loop. Check the first program on the for loop. You see example 1 here. Example 1 is about for loop, and we want to print all numbers from 1 to 10. We already seen this on the blank page, how to print all numbers from 1 to 10. What I was saying is, how do you print all numbers from 1 to 10? What I will do is, you already know now, you have seen on the blank page that I wrote. What we do is, we will write for, then some variable x, then in range. Now we want to print 1 to 10. So we'll give 1, 11 as the range, correct? And after that, we will give colon character. Now, very important discussion I am doing, just check, which I did not discuss till now. Very importantly, after you give colon and hit enter, obviously you will hit enter after this. When you hit enter, you see where cursor lands. Cursor doesn't land over here below the for, because usually when you hit enter, the cursor will come on the left corner. But you see the cursor has been indented. Thoda andar gaya na cursor. It is somewhere inside there. This is a characteristic of for loop, that whatever job you want to run is always given as indented statement. So what I am giving here is print x. Now notice, if you give print x here, just check the change. Just check. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. The program will give error. This line, which is the job, has to be indented. Now, those who have learned C, C++, don't take it seriously. If you have not learned it, it's okay. But those who have learned C, C++, C also has for loop, and it is written something like this. And the job that we want to repeat is given in curly brace open and curly brace close. Now, Python doesn't have any such concept. What Python says, okay, I have a for loop followed by colon. You tell me which job to run, but the job that you give, should be indented. Only then I will know, okay, that this for has to repeat this job. You will get used to this. Definitely you will get used to this. And I will go further and say, so this is how the indentation has been done. Now look, you don't have to do any hard work for doing indentation. What did I say is, when you give colon here at the end, and when you hit enter, the cursor will automatically be indented. So you just continue writing your statement, and this statement becomes the part of the for loop. So now when I run this code, see, this is the button to run. When I run this code, it will print all numbers from 1 to 10. And you know what happens, isn't it? What happened really? This variable x became 1 first. And the job executed, which printed 1 because x is 1. Then this variable x became 2. And then this printed x, which is 2. This went on till 10. And after that, the loop stopped. The loop has to stop. Otherwise, it will keep hanging. It will keep hanging in that loop itself. Okay. What if I put one more line here? say print hello first timers. You just check. Now what I have done, in this for loop, now what I have done, I have said X, when you become one, you run this statement print X, and you run this statement also, print hello first timers. And then you make X as 2. Please try to understand. So X, when you become 2, you print this X and you print this hello first timer. That means how many lines is for loop going to repeat every time? It is going to repeat all those lines which are indented. Please try to understand. It's so easy. These printf and this print and this print, both print are inside the for. So for every repetition will repeat these 2 lines. Yeah, Utha is asking the question that why is it not including 11? There is something else also. Sir, if we want to print floating numbers, what should we do? Oh, very good. I'll come back to your question. We can use while loop to be comfortable. Okay. There is another type of loop called while loop that we can use for printing floating point numbers. Okay. And why doesn't it include 11? Now, Putha, a few things, are to be agreed according to grammar. And the grammar has been made, rules have been made like that initial value will be taken, but the final value won't be taken. It will be final -1. So this is a rule. And this is how the for loop has been built in the Python. Basically, there are a few things which are there in the rules and we can't challenge them. I mean, somebody asks us why English statement ends with full stop. It ends with full stop. It is there in the rule. Like that, the last value is not taken. The last value is not considered, but last but one before this is only considered. So just accept it as a rule. We don't have any explanation over it. Where was I? I said that these 2 will print hello first timers. What will happen when X is 2? It will print 2 because we are printing X, and it will print hello first timers. This 2 print will be done 10 times. Let's try to run this. Oh, look at that. Okay. So just check. How many times are we welcoming first timers? Because that hello first timers, has been included in the for loop, and it is printing X where it was 1. Then it is sincerely going to second printf and printing hello first timers. Then it is printing X, which is 2. Then it is printing hello first timers. This will be done 10 times because the range was given from 1 to 11. You can see that the last output is when X was 10, it printed 10 and hello first timers. But what if somebody says that no, we want only values from 1 to 10. Just see, I want values from 1 to 10, but this hello first timers, should be printed only once. So I don't want this print to be included in the for loop. Are you understanding? See, you have to clearly tell the for loop that what do you want to repeat and what do you don't want to repeat. Correct? So what you do then for this second print, I don't want to repeat this. So what I do is I just go to the beginning of this line and I press backspace. Yeah, backspace key. I press backspace and I outdent it. I have just taken it out of for. Please try to understand that this print is still there in my program. This is part of my program, but it is not part of the for loop. Try to understand. It is out of for loop now. So when will this print run? Hello first timers. It will run only when this for loop ends. And when will for loop end? After printing 10, because last value was 11. So let's try to run this. And this time you can see all values from 1 to 10 have got printed. So it has been proved that for loop is only printing X, going back, printing X, going back, printing X, going back. And after printing 10, it has come out of for loop and printed hello first timer. So it is so often important for a programmer to understand when do you indent, when do you outdent. Okay. I have a question. Let's say, just imagine I have some job one. Imagine some job, okay? Some job two, job three. To be repeated, these three jobs should be repeated, say 50 times. Just imagine. Okay. And then I have job three that should not be repeated, but it should be in my program. Please try to understand. So job 1, 2, and 3 should be repeated 50 times. Then job 4 should not be repeated. It should be out of the for loop. So how am I going to write the for? I'm going to write some x variable in range 1, 51, correct? Colon. So this clearly will repeat 50 times. The for will repeat 50 times because x is taking values from 1 to 50, correct or not? So 50 times it will repeat. And look at this. Job 1, job 2, job 3 are indented. Why they are indented? Because my intention is I want to repeat them in the for loop. Please try to understand. But what about job 4? Say some job I want, but that job should not be repeated. So I will outdent, I will bring it back at the level of the for. I will not indent it and I will write job 4, which means job 4 is not the part of the for loop. So it won't repeat, but it will run only once. Job 4 will run only once. Just imagine now, after job 4, I've got job 5 and job 6 to be repeated 10 times in the same program. I want this job 5 and job 6 to be repeated 10 times. So I will construct a new for loop. I'll say for y in range, some variable I'll take y in range 1 to 11 and then put a colon. So 1 to 11 means it will run 10 times and these jobs will be indented again within the for. But then what if there is job 7, which I don't want to include in the for? I will outdent job 7 by using a backspace. I hope you are understanding enough about this. I have been teaching C, C++ since many years and then Java. What's the most difficult part of C, C++ and Java, which students always complain that, sir, we are not able to understand how to deal with this. What exactly is very difficult in C, C++ and Java is opening brace and close brace. Believe me, this is very hard to believe. This is very hard to believe because all the fors and while and if and all sorts of control structures in C, C++ and Java also have something like block. You have to tell for loop how much to repeat. How much to repeat. And the things which you don't want to repeat are given beyond the for loop. So this line won't be repeated by the for. Now, this is very, very cumbersome, very difficult to understand. And what's equally difficult in Python initially is when to indent and when not to indent. When to take something inside the for and when not to take something inside the for. How to print number in rows is that, you see, did you check the output of our program here? I'll just remove this print hello first timers. Sorry, first timers. But then this is going to print 1 to 10. Everybody knows. And what is this boy asking is that all the numbers are getting printed one below the other. You see, one below the other. But what if I want the output something like this? I want output to be 1, 2, 3, 4, all on one line. Like this I want. Now, at the moment, all the numbers are getting printed one below the other, isn't it? So a very small change I will have to do. A very small change. What I will have to do is that when I am printing X, or rather when I am printing anything, and if I want to tell that print statement that don't take cursor to next line, but keep the cursor on the same line after printing this content, then I will give comma and I will give end. There is a special word called end and then equal to, and then quotation open and quotation close given by space. Now, please try to understand what this is. You know that x is 1. Initially, x is 1. Then 1 will be printed. And after printing 1, space will be printed. But cursor won't come on new line. Then x will become 2. X is now 2 second time. So 2 will be printed. But after printing 2, space will be printed. New line won't be printed. I mean, cursor won't come on next line. So suppose you run this code. Just see. All numbers are on one line and they have been clearly separated by space. You watch. So what if I give this end as dash, let's say. So what will happen now is x will be printed and then dash will be printed. Very interestingly, after 10 also dash will be printed. Let's see. Just check. After every value of x, we want to end it with dash. After every value, we want to end it with dash. And naturally, after 10 also, there will be dash. This way, you can avoid cursor to go to the next line and you can print the values on the same line. So the output we want is 11, 15, then 12, 16, then 13, 17, I think, yes, and say 14, 18. Let's take one more line, 15, 19, and 16, 20. Let's. So how we can print this output? You can see that I will say for x in range, just check very carefully, range 11, 17. Just check this. 11, 17. You see, last value here I want is 16. So I have given 17. You know why? Because this value will be considered not as the last value, but previous value of 17 will be considered as last value. Now, what I do then is I will print x. Of course, first time x printed will be 11, correct? And I will give comma, and I will give some space because there is some space here. You see this? There is some space here, and then comma, and then I will print x plus 4. So what was x first time? X was 11. So this will print 11, and this will print 11 plus 4, which is 15. But then what will be x taken second time? X taken second time will be 12. So now x printed will be 12, and this will be 12 plus 4, which is 16. And this is how you will get this output. I hope I have answered this question, how to print that particular output. What was Fariha asking is, I printed 1 to 10 along with print hello. Although hello was outside the loop, but it was run along the row. I don't know what happened. See, just check whether you have written it like this. Wait a minute. I'll just rewrite, Fariha, your program. Just match whether it is there, whether it is written like this. Suppose I said print 1 to 10. Okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Print 1 to 10. This will print 1 to 10. Everybody knows. And then if I say print hello, but I don't want hello in the for loop. So make sure you have outdented it, Fariha. And this print should be indented. Now when you run this, this will print 1 to 10, but it will print hello only once. Of course, it will get printed on the same line because after the last value, there was no new line. We did not give new line. Cursor remained on the same line. So even after printing 10, cursor remained on the same line. Therefore, this hello will get printed on the same line. But importantly, hello was printed only once. I hope your question is answered. So hello won't be printed 10 times, Fariha. Hello will be printed only once. And I have executed this code and I have shown that hello is printed only once. I hope you have understood. Your question is clarified. Yes, sir, I did the same. I just wanted to print hello in one column. Okay. So what is the need? What is her need is, Fariha needs this hello to be printed on the next line. So what we will have to do, after this for loop, see, remember the cursor has not moved to new line. So after this for loop, we outdent and we say print \n. I didn't want to go in these details. Okay. Now, instead of taking this output into consideration, that is designing the output, you just have a look at how for behaves, first of all. Anyway, but because you have asked this question, see, when this for ends, We can give a special print. We can give print new line. This backslash n means new line. So cursor will fall to the new line, and then this print hello can print hello on the new line. So here we go. So this extra statement can be written between the for loop and print hello. Yeah, backslash n. Ankit already answered it, but I didn't want to go in those details anyway. Okay. So let me take deep breaths. Now comes the second grammar of the for loop. Here we go. One more way of writing for loop. Just check. Suppose we are asked a question that we need to write a program to print all odd numbers between 1 to 10. Oh, primarily you can see that these are very ordinary questions. I raise my hand and I agree. But this is just our third lecture on Python, and we should go according to the merit of each program. Okay, we want to print all odd numbers from 1 to 10. So the output should be 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. This should be the output, all odd numbers between 1 to 10. So how do you write this? What you do is you say for x, there is a variable in range. I hope you are very comfortable with grammar now. In range 1, 11. So for x in range 1, 11, 2 I will give. Check the second part of the grammar. 2. Now this is initial value, and this is the final value, but this won't be considered. This is final minus 1 is considered. So this is 1, 10. And then the last thing given is the increment. So what will happen? X will take first value 1 and then run the job. Then X will take 3 as the next value, because the increment specified over here is 2. So if X was 1, next time X will become 3, then 5, then 7, then 9, and then stop. Why will it stop after 9? Because after 9, it can't become 11, because you see the final value is 11 and the loop should stop at 10. So what if I give print X over here? Print X. This is going to print all odd numbers from 1 to 9. So what is the other grammar of the for? For some variable, after that there is a word in, and then range. Then some initial value, then final. Remember, this is always final minus 1, and then some increment, and then colon, and then job. Job will be always indented. Maybe job 1, no semicolon, I'm so sorry. Job 2, job 3, and so on. And if job 4 is not to be repeated, it is outdented. Correct? Now, just check if this initial is 1, final is 11, and increment, let's say increment is 4. Then this variable X will first take value 1, and the jobs will be done. After doing jobs, X will become X plus 4. That means it will become 5. The job will be done again. And then X will become X plus 4, which is 9. The job will be done again. But then X can't become 13, because the limit given over here was 11. So actually it can run only up to 10. So it actually executed only for X equal to 9. So this jobs will be done 3 times. 3 times, because we have given the increment in that fashion, isn't it? So what was the problem? We wanted to print all odd numbers, isn't it? Between 1 to 10. Okay. We wanted to print all odd numbers between 1 to 10. In that case, we will say for X in range 1, 11, 2. So we know first odd number is 1 and the next odd number is 3. So we will increment this X every time by 2, and we will simply put print X. Hence, it will print all odd numbers from 1 to 10. But then what if I want to print all even numbers between 1 to 10? How do you print? I want output as 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. I want these values, all even numbers between 1 to 10. How do you do that? What you will do is you will say for x in range 2 comma. Now notice, this is bit of a cheating we are doing, as if we know which are the even numbers. We started this range from 2 because we don't want 1 to be printed. So we said that let's start the range with 2 and then let us take it till 11. That means till 10, and increment will be 2, then colon, and we will give print x. So which is the first value taken by x? That is 2. So 2 will be printed. But which is the next value taken by x? It will be 4, because this 2 will be added with 2. So 4 will be printed second time, next time 6, next time 8, next time 10. But after 10, the loop can't repeat because the restriction given was up to 11. Somebody on chat again. Increment 1, I didn't get. Increment 1. Increment 1 is by default. See, what if you don't give increment at all? This third component you don't give. You give only 2 comma 11. Then each time x will be increased by 1 each time. So output of this will be 2, 3, 4 up to 10. I mean, auto increment is 1. So there is no point in giving 2 comma 11 comma 1. It's already there, 1. But if you want to give some other increment, you give it. Okay, somebody on chat again. There is no harm. You can use increment 1. You can write, for example, you can write the for loop like this. You watch. You write it as for x in range 1 comma 11 comma 1. You write it, no harm. This will be still taken as an increment, and then you give print x. This will clearly print all numbers from 1 to 10 because the increment is just 1. Yeah, Ankit answered it. So if I say 2 comma 11 here, that's what is his answer. With the increment 1, the output will be 2, 3, 4 up to 10. Correct? Yeah, got it. Fine. Now, after seeing how to print even and odd numbers, here is my question. Think over it. I want answer on the chat. The question is, I want to write a program to print all numbers from 1 to 10 in reverse order. So the output of the program this time should be 10, 9, 8, 7 up to 1. This should be the output. Think over it. I mean, it's sure that we will use for because we want to repeat printing of the numbers. What do you want to repeat? Print number. That's what we want to repeat. So we will say x in, and of course we have some range. But what should be the range given over here is the question. After that colon, and then obviously we will give print x. But we want this x to be 10 first time. Then when this repeats, x should be 9 next time, then 8, and last time 1. Somebody on chat? Yes, Ankit is correct. Absolutely. But there is a question. Saket Rao. Sir, but when do we need decrement? When do we need 10 to 0? Correct. Animesh is absolutely right. 10 comma 0 you will have to give. Ankit Maurya. You don't give 10 comma 1 comma minus 1. It should be 10 comma 0 comma minus 1. When do you need decrement is the question. In the higher end concepts of programming, you have data structure like arrays. Okay, you have arrays. I'm not discussing this, but just imagine. And some values are stored in the array. Some values. Okay, 15, 25, 68. Some values, and the indexes of the array locations are from 0 to 6. And I don't know why, but depending on your application, you want to start processing the array from right side, from here down here. So you don't want to process 0th element, then first, but you want to go in the reverse order. This is one of the reasons out of 1,000 reasons why you need negative range, correct? Why you want to go from larger value to smaller value. Okay, here we go. There's a chat again. Okay, sir, fine. So the answer to the question, how do you print 10 to 1 is you give 10. So first value will be 10. Last value you is 0. Oh, good Lord. Look at that. Why we gave 0 is, now the loop won't terminate at 0, but loop will terminate at 1. Confusing. Just see. And the increment will give is -1. So first time if x is 10, next time x will be 1 less than 10. So 9. Next time it will be 1 less than 9, 8, and so on. But then the limit we have given is 0. So it will end at 1. It will, if you give 1 here, come on, if you give 1, then it will end at 2. It will end 1 less than this. But then you will say, sir, 2 is greater than 1. Look, when we are going in reverse order, when we are going in reverse order like this, we want to go up to 1. So give one value after this, so that the loop will terminate at 1. I hope you are understanding what I am saying. So let's see. Here we have already done with even numbers. Okay. How do you print all numbers from 10 to 1? Just check this code. This was the discussion going on. So 10, 0, -1 print x. If I run this, it is going to print 10 to 1, all numbers. What if I give 1 here? This is going to print 10 to 2. Just observe. It stops at 2. But I want 1 also, so I will give 0. So negative increment also can be given. And we can actually process in the reverse order. That are the features of the for loop. What will happen if we just give 10, 0? Okay, here is Satish asking a very interesting question. Why we use -1, sir? Animesh is asking. Because if we start with 10, it's better, Animesh, I answer your question by answering question of Satish. Just check. Suppose I simply give 10, 0. Okay, I'll better write it on empty slate. Suppose, let's say I give for x in range 10, 0. Now, a few minutes back, what did I say? That the auto increment is always 1. I told you that. If you don't give any increment, the third component, it is always by default 1. So what will happen, the Python when checks this code, it will say, okay, I have to start with 10, okay, and then I have to increase that 10 by 1. You see, that means next value I have to take is 11, next 12, next 13, next 14, and how far I have to do this? Till 0. Python will start thinking, what have you written? How can you go from 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, then stop at 0? Where can 0 come? That means if you simply write 10, 0, this is not going to work. You have a clear cut requirement of going from 10 to 0 in reverse order. So you say start with 10, go up to 0 and decrease the value by 1. Now it would understand first time x takes the value 10, next time it takes 9, then 8. Yes, it is approaching 0, isn't it? It is approaching 0 now. Somebody on chat? Yeah, decrease -1 number. Yeah, correct, Pratap. Represent decrease. Yes, Ankit, correct. So I hope Satish question has been answered. Okay. So coming back to Jupyter Notebook, let's try to run this without any increment. Look at this. X in range 10, 0 I have given, but I have not given -1. Let's try to run this. Where is it? Just see. I'm executing this and nothing happens. What happened, when I executed this, the for did not even start, because for says I can't run from 10 to 0. So there is no question of printing anything. It said that I will not repeat, simply because it doesn't know how to go from 10 to 0. But when you put -1 here and when you run this code, this is going to print 10 back to 1. Somebody on chat again. Can we use float values in it? No, Shubham. Float values cannot be used. If you want to use float values, you better use while loop. There is another way of repeating the certain set of statements. You use while loop. Okay. Okay, fine. Now, after we have learned these basics, I think 4 examples we have learned on the for loop. Here is a question. Just imagine we are asked a question like this. Question is, write a program to find sum of all numbers from 1 to 10. What our program should do is it should find the answer for this 1 plus 2 plus 3 up to 10, and the answer for this is 55. So the output of the program should be 55. Many students get confused. They think this should be the output. No. I am telling this should be calculated by my program. This should be found internally by my program, and this should be the output. Final output should be 55. Just take my words. This is a typical program which is so important in computer science. Not only in Python, but any other language. This might look as ordinary program, but this is a building block of the concept of variables and processing. Let's call this quantity as S. Sum. So sum should be 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 up to 10. Now, how do you write this program is, it is clear that we want 1, then we want 2, then we want 3 up to 10. We want these values, isn't it? So what I do is I'll say for X in range 1, 11, and then put a colon. Can you see? Actually, can you see? X becomes 1, then X becomes 2, then X becomes 3, and finally X becomes 10. So surely X will have all these values one by one. Okay. Now, just before the for loop, we are going to say S, you are a variable. Now, inside the for loop, we indent, obviously, you know, and we say S should become S plus X. So you just see X in the range 1, 11. And then I have written this job. Now, every time, you know, all the programs that we saw, job was print, and only print. It's not necessary that for will do only printing. I mean, the for can do some processing internally and keep that processing in the memory. And then what I'm doing, I'm ending the for. That means I'm outdenting and I'm printing S. Check that this print is not in the for, because I have outdented this statement. Now, how does this run? Quick time, just in 30 seconds. Set the clock, 30 seconds. Take S as 0. What happens in the for? X starts with 1. Okay, X is 1. Run this statement now. Because for X equal to 1, this line will run. How does this line run? S should become equal to S plus X. But what is S? 0. What is X? 1. That means the new value of S will become 1, 0 plus 1. So now what are the values? S is now 1 and X will become 2. You know, during second repetition, X becomes 2. When X becomes 2, this line again runs. So run this line. S becomes S plus X. But S is 1 already. Yeah, S is 1 plus X is 2. So S becomes 1 plus 2, which means S is no more 1 now. S becomes 3. Now wait here, wait. Just check the value of S. What is S? 3. S is 3. That means we have calculated S till this point. You just check. S is 1 plus 2. Hello. S is already 1 plus 2, isn't it? But we want to add 3 also to it. So what we do is we again repeat the for, correct? With S as 3 now, and X will become 3. Are you following it? What are we going to do? Run the job. The job is S becomes S plus X, but S is already 3 and X is 3. So S will become 6. Note, if S is 6 at the moment, then actually it means S is 1 plus 2 plus 3. Yeah, that is 6. But we want 4 also to be added. So what we are doing, you know, we are making X as 4 and adding that X to S and storing the result in S itself. Okay, that will repeat 10 times, obviously. Just out of curiosity, I am asking this. Not a very big question, not a research-oriented question. But just imagine, here is my question. Just imagine that X is 9 at the moment, okay? You know, X will go up to 10 in the for loop. X is 9 at the moment. So you know that that 9 will be added to S, correct? And the result will be stored in S itself, correct? So my question is, after adding 9 to S, what will be the value of S? Value of S. What is the value of S? After adding 9 to the sum, what is the value of S? I don't want exact answer. I want the answer like this, that after adding 9 to the value of S, the value of S will represent sum of 1 to 9. Tell me, isn't that true? Sum of 1 to 9, come on. But then you want sum of 1 to 10. So to this S, you simply add 10 and store the result in S. Of course, this loop is going to run for 10 also. I hope you have understood it enough. Okay. So coming back to our code here, you see this code. Finding sum of all numbers from 1 to 10. You watch this. You see, I have said S should be 0. And then I am taking X from 1 to 10. Clearly, X is going to go from 1 to 10. Correct? Because it is up to 11. So every time we take X, add it to S and store the result in S. Okay. But now you note, now you just check this print. What are we printing? We are printing S. Just check, we are printing the value of S. But isn't this print given outside the for? Come on, because it is outdented. It is not in the for. So we will get only final sum. Let's try to run this. Yes, sum is 55. Only one sum we got. What if I put this print also in this for? I hope you are understanding now. For each value of X, it will add that X in the sum and it will also print the sum. So let's see what will be the output. It will say sum is 1, sum is 3, sum is 6, sum is 10. Just check this line. Sum is 10. What does this indicate? 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, isn't it? And what does this indicate? Sum of all numbers from 1 to 9. Each time we add X to S, we print sum. But what if you don't want all the sums, you want only final sum? Then hello, give this print outside the for, isn't it? Yeah, 45, correct. This was the answer to the question. What will be the value of S when 9 is added to S? Okay. So this is how you add all numbers from 1 to 10. Fine. But then don't you feel that this program, this program that we have written is monotonous? Because each time I run this program, every time I run, it is going to print only 55. Every time I run this, it will print 55. Just check, it will always print 55. But what if we want to generalize this? Suppose the question is, input some number n, okay, and add all numbers from 1 to n is the question. I'll just clear the slate here. The question is, we want to input value of n is some number, and find 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus up to n. So what should happen, when the program starts? Program should ask operator to enter value of n. And suppose n entered by the operator is 10. Then the output should be sum equal to 55. Because this n now is 10. So it should find sum of all numbers from 1 to 10. But operator is now free to enter any value. Like if operator enters 5, correct, then the output should be 15. Addition of all numbers from 1 to 5. How can we print a single value of 55? I didn't get. Single value of 55 means, Sudha, 55 itself is a single value. I'll come back to your question. Okay. So this is what we want to do. Correct. Input the value of n and add all numbers from 1 to n. So what will be the small change in the code? You see, here is the code. Just check this. What we have to do to add all numbers from 1 to n. I hope you are watching the program. What you have to do, you have to input. So there is a function called input in Python, and it works very easily. just say input, and in the bracket, just give a message like enter username, enter password, something like that. So the question here that we want to ask is enter the value of n, and whatever input is given should be stored by the variable n. So n is given on the left hand side. But there is a problem here. Check the problem with the input function. This actually I had explained last time. I'm just explaining this for newcomers. We have said n is equal to input, enter value of n. So what will happen, user will be allowed to input a value from the keyboard, and that value will be stored by n. Now suppose user enters 5 as the input, then 5, the value entered at the keyboard, will be stored by n, but 5 will be stored as a string. Now input function is designed in such a way that whatever you input is always taken as a string. So n over here will be string, which stores 5. But we don't want string, we want a number. And actually operator thinks that he or she has entered a number, because come on, in our world, 5 is a number. So when we say 5 and hit enter on the keyboard, we think that we have entered 5. But actually this 5 will be quoted. It will be in the form of a string, and n will have a quoted 5. But we don't want a string, we want an integer. N should be integer. So what's the simple way is you convert n into integer. Just check what we have done here is we have written n is equal to int n. I hope you are watching that line, second line of the program. Simple. What it means is n should become integer of n. Now what is n? N is already 5, but quoted 5. Then n will become literally numeric 5. Now everything is okay. Now n is an integer. Coming back to our problem, what was the problem? We want to add all numbers from 1 to n, isn't it? Now we will introduce s as 0, and then we will write for x, some variable in range 1 comma n plus 1. Think over it, and then s is s plus x. Please, I take a pause here for 30 seconds. Just think over it, and after this for, there will be print s, the sum. The answer should be printed after the for, outdented. Just see this code. If n is 5, how will this for loop behave? Just think over it. Somebody on chat again. Okay, Satish. What is that 15 answer? I don't know. Maybe I asked some question and I forgot. Okay.
Hello, sir. Is I audible?
Yes, exactly.
Sir, actually, my question is that we are printing the numbers which sum of numbers 1 to 10. And
Yes.
we are getting the result that 2, 3, 9 and something it is else. And after at last we are getting 55 as a result.
Yes.
Can we get as a single value sum of 1 to 10 as only the value 55?
Yeah, that's what we had actually printed. You just check this. That's what was the result. We got only 55 as the result. Just check this. This was the program, and when I execute this, yeah, it is still executing, I think. This star means the program is executing. I hope everything is well, because sometimes, Jupyter Notebook hangs for no reason, actually. What happens, when Jupyter Notebook is beyond its size, I mean, some size restriction is there. And if it goes beyond oh yeah, there is one more reason. I got it. There is a program which is executing here. Let me first finish this program. Okay. Thank God. So this was summing all numbers from 1 to 10. Yes, you want output 55, and the output will be 55. You watch. Only 55 is printed. What I was explaining is that if you give this print, in the for loop, now this print is in the for loop. Now it will print each and every output. That means after adding 1, sum is 1. After adding 2, sum is 3. After adding 3, sum is 6, like that. But if you take this print outside the for, Now there won't be any trouble, because what for will do, it will just add 1, then add 2, then add 3, and after adding 10, the for will end, and then print will run, printing only 55. Okay, what was somebody on chat again? I hope your question is answered. If you are still unmuted, so can you understand this code now? Just check this. Just check the code. Here, X will take the range 1 to n plus 1. So can you understand this code? We are going to input n. So coming back to this code, it's better that I run this code. See, it is asking me to enter the value of n. If I say 5, then this 5, just check. This is due to this input. This is due to this input, correct? Then the 5 will be stored by this n, but this 5 will be stored as quoted 5. It will be string. So this line, which is written next, will convert n to integer value of n. So n will be numeric 5. And now, if you understand this range, please tell me you understand this. Because 1 to 5 plus 1, this is it. So this is 1 to 6, because n is 5. So the final value is 6. So this is 1 comma 6. So which numbers will be added? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's what we wanted to do. So when I hit enter, the output will be sum is 15. Okay, let us run this again. It will ask me the value. Suppose I enter 10. Then all numbers from 1 to 10 will be printed. Sorry, I mean sum of all numbers from 1 to 10 will be printed. That is 55. Okay, by the way, I think we have already engaged the lecture for 1 hour, 30 minutes. And we will continue from here. And I will teach while loop to you. While loop and if else. Fine. And then you will see that all these can be mixed to write variety of programs. I will tell when to use while, when to use for. Maybe tomorrow we will directly first start with while and then come back to this example 7, which is not yet discussed, and example 8 and 9. And don't worry, these Jupyter notebooks will be shared with you. Now, those who already know what is Jupyter notebook, this is such a nice thing that once you get Jupyter notebook on your mail, you can just open this Jupyter notebook on your computer, and then you have these notes and the program also. So you can just click on some program and you run it. So actually, I could have given PDF of this, but what would have happened if I give PDF? Then you will have to type the programs first of all on the Jupyter notebook and then run them. But now you have already typed programs, and the advantage is that you can try these programs by changing a few things. Already typed program is there, you can try them. By the way, the second reason to use Jupyter notebook is that this is for those who have joined now today. Just check. Give me some time. Okay, let's Google out something. So for those who are really curious after today's class to run Python programs tonight only on their machine, but really are worried, how do I install Python and how do I install Anaconda? You don't have to install anything if you know something called Google Colab. Google Colab. Just give this Google and Google Colab Jupyter notebook. You see, first suggestion you take. Okay. And the first suggestion here is from Google Research. Welcome to Collaboratory. And what fun we have over here is you have a ready-made Jupyter notebook, this one, and just say, I want a new notebook. I hope I will hold the cursor here for some time. See the right corner of this window here, new notebook. Just click on new notebook. Okay, it will take some time to load the Jupyter notebook, the new notebook. Yeah, see, this is the new notebook. The name of this notebook is untitled3.ipynb. Okay, IPython notebook we call it as. And now if you type some Python program like for X in range 1, 11, colon, okay, print X, and then just run it. This button is for run on the left. Run it. It will take some time. The first few executions take some time. Okay, cell is already running. Okay, let it run. Let it enjoy its time. But then see, the output is 1 to 10. This in fact is the output 1 to 10. great thing about Google Colab, you know, is that just take a machine. It should have internet. Don't need Python. Don't need Anaconda. Just go to Google Colab, type your program, get the work done. So for those who have missed first 2 lectures on how to install Python and Anaconda, my suggestion is you go and check the YouTube video. But if you are really eager to type programs today, you can do this. You don't have to wait for the instructions of installing Python and Anaconda. I think that's great, isn't it? One more great thing about this Google Colab is, do you know that your program is running on Google server? It is not running on your local machine. Of course, program is on this machine, but you are using Google Space. And Google Space, of course, will be very fast. Very fast it will be. It will have terabytes of memory and huge microprocessors. And then you are getting this for nothing. You don't have to pay anything. Yeah, you will get YouTube link. Our administrators will do that. Or the best thing is you can just go to YouTube, but then you can only search Python Ekeeda. That's all. Python Ekeeda. Okay. Ekeeda. And I think the first suggestion you will get after clicking Python Ekeeda is, I think this is yeah, here is session 1, Samir Velankar. Yeah. This is the one, session 1, and this is session 2. 2 sessions we have had of around 1 hour 40 and 1 hour 36 minutes. Hope so. Today's session was of some use to you, and tomorrow we will try to speed up a few things. And I don't know how many of you were newcomers, but I have spoken enough with you today. I hope so. And this is the time when I am going to sign off now. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.